Hello. Hey, everybody. Welcome to yet another series of yet another Enoughness interview. And today we have with us the lovely, the inspirational, um, the very unconventional Meri Griesbach. Meri, have I said your last name correctly? Griesbach.
Yeah, you're pretty close. It's very, very good.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. So, Meri, I'm going to hand it over to you to, tell the viewers what is it that you do and a little bit about your story.
Okay. I'm not really sure where to start with this, Shilpa, to be honest. It's a bit like writing the book. I wasn't sure where to start.
I know, right? Okay. So, maybe just a brief story because they're going to read your in-depth story in the book anyway.
So just a bit of an overview.
Yes, the message that you stand for.
Yeah, okay. So I'm an art therapist and I have a studio where I see clients, and my main drive for that is to help people with their trauma, grief experiences, and them to move forward from that, using art therapy as the modality. So the reason for this is that I've experienced quite a lot in my life. I've had a lot of trauma and experiences throughout my life, from a childhood right through to adulthood, including abusive relationship and death of my son through suicide. So the book is really about me explaining how one thing leads to another, decisions get made and things don't work out the way you plan in life. And you are constantly readjusting and re-examining your outlook and your belief systems, and then how to use art therapy as a way of integrating this new way of seeing the world. And why I believe so strongly in art therapy and I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Very, very beautiful sense. And I think I would like to add my perspective. It's been my absolute honor that I get access to your manuscript. I've been, in the making of this baby together, which is not out yet. But when I read Meri's introduction chapter for the first time, you remember, Meri, I told you, to me, it sounds like fiction. Like her story is unreal. And with respect, I think I would have just checked out of, I didn't want such a chaotic life and, just might have wanted to check out of life because there's a lot of trauma. But the good part is that, Meri has found closure with or peace with all those pieces of her life. And only then, she's now in a position to share it with the wider audience.
Paying it forward is what it's all about, because as much as it's hard to say, it's kind of given me a purpose. All the trials and tribulations I've been through have ended up with me with a very strong sense of purpose and passion about what I do.
Yeah, and a lesson, like when I was reading your story, I'm like, oh my God, why does she keep doing this to herself over and over again? Like, when are you changing your ways? Is the story continuing like that? And it does continue multiple times until you finally get the lesson. So, that has been my biggest lesson, Yeah, you will keep getting the message, you'll keep getting the memo, you'll keep doing those mistakes until you have actually learned the lesson. So
yes, that's right. That's very true. I kept repeating behaviours until it became untenable. I couldn't cope with it any longer. And, and then that led to shutdown.
Yeah. And, I think we're just like talking so much about the book, but it's unavoidable because it's, guys, you're in for some richness and some goodness because I've seen schizophrenics, I've seen paranoids and a whole variety of mental disorders in people in my immediate or extended circle. And it is, in discussions with Meri and in writing her book and, understanding what art therapy is about and, she sharing with me her philosophies and why she stands for them has helped me gain, so much perspective about, normal and not normal and what's my.
Oh, that just warms my heart so much to hear you say that, Shilpa,
Oh
honestly,
no,
because
truly. Yeah.
that's really what
Yeah, and I would like to believe I'm very compassionate and not judgmental, but when I think of people with mental disorders, um, it really challenges my ability to have compassion and to
yeah.
not judge. And that's when I'm reminded of our conversations, and I'm like, okay, Shilpa, remember, she's just explained to you your normal cannot be their normal, or yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And mental health is challenging. And
It
one
is.
of the my purposes in life is to remove the stigma around mental health, because it is quite frightening when you don't understand what's happening with another person. How can you put it into context if you
Yeah.
don't understand where they're coming from? And
Yeah.
and that frightens us. It's the fear of the unknown. And so it's easy to be very reactive to that.
I know. Yeah, done that. Hmm.
Especially for
So,
someone who's close to you.
yeah, I think the conversation has already taken such a very, what can I say, organic turn. But I do have a certain few set of questions that I really wanted to ask you and connect it, tie it back with enoughness and why we are doing this work together. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, can you tell me, Meri, what was your first taste of what was your first taste of not enoughness or emptiness, and how did it lead you to write this book?
Oh, wow. Gosh, sure, but that's a big question.
Okay, that's how I like to do it.
I mean, I've suffered, I think, what I call a sense of lack all my life. All my life I've felt less than, not enough for.
Yeah,
That's something that's been a common thread throughout my life, and I've questioned my ability no matter what I do all my
I'm with
life.
you. Yeah.
And and I think I've wanted to write a book for a really, really long time, but I've never felt confident enough to do that because, one, it seemed like such a massive theme that I couldn't get my head around how to do it. So the how-tos played a big part. So I thought, I don't know how to do that. So again, I'm not enough. I can't do it, and
Yeah.
give up. Even though I've got people around me saying, do it, do it, do it, I still didn't feel like I had a story to tell, which is bizarre, because we all do, as you say.
Yeah, and if you say you didn't have a story to tell, then who did? Like, oh my God, guys, wait till you read her story. Like, I'm not exaggerating at all.
So I think it was a case of right place, right time when I met you, Shilpa, and I've had this tape playing in my head for a really long time, and I heard you speak at one of the Women in Business things. And you didn't say much, like you weren't the speaker, but you said enough to make me think, okay, maybe there is a way for me to get my story there. So
Yeah.
then when we connected online, then I knew that there was a synergy there, that we could work together, and you were going to help me. Yeah. So
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah.
right.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm slightly distracted because you just talked about how you have felt not enough, less than human, less than, like, that's been, I think, each
Yeah.
one of our story. Like, I cannot say there is any human on the planet who has not felt not enough.
Yeah, I agree with
Yes.
that.
Yeah, it's just, we all have a
I
different way of coping
hate to
with
be
it.
biased, but I think for women especially,
Yeah.
there tends to be this sense of like we're told all the time to put other people's needs first, put everyone else above us, and we're not as
Tell me
important as
about it.
others. And that's the subconscious message we get all through our lives. It's not. necessarily said to our face, but our society is set up in that way that it makes us feel like our needs are secondary to everyone else's, and by default that makes us feel less than. So I think it's a common thing among women, especially. It is becoming a big thing among men now, I feel, because they don't know their place in society. But that's a whole other
conversation. Right. So, and
yes,
that's why this whole movement was born, right? Because rightly, as you said, women, and even more so artists, and those in the creative profession, and aspiring writers, especially those who have this calling to share their story but don't know how, or don't know if it's good enough. And that's why this whole movement and this interview series and my book, Enoughness, Your Story Matters. So can you share with us what were some of the obstacles you faced in the beginning of your journey, and did perfection try to lure you?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, my problem right from the beginning was one: how do I do this? What are the I didn't have a roadmap of how to do it. So having the template to work from was really helpful. But I also am not a person who sticks to rules very well. So even though I could see the sense in working to a formula, I found myself wanting to drift away from the formula a lot. And so then I
you're allowed to do that, right? Like, my system is not about play within the box. That's what I keep telling all the time, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that, I want it to be a successful book, and so I had this pressure on me that I wanted to make sure that it was a successful and readable read.
Right.
And that I knew that there was a way to do that. But being me, I felt like I couldn't stick to the plan. And so then I'd start to doubt my ability to make it through, because I would be like, oh no, I'm not sticking to it. I can't work out how to do this. And what if it's no good anyway? And then I'd go down this big spiral of, oh no, it's too hard. And then just getting started writing was hard. And I think one of the things that turned me around was one of the interviews I had with you, Shilpa, where you said, just start with a question.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, wow, that's it. That's what I have to do. Because once you start, it flows.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. So I thought, oh, okay. So once I got past that little hump, it was much easier. But again, some of the challenges I've had, I think, have come from outside of writing the book. Like, I've had pressures outside of the book, which have made it hard for me to concentrate, because I've had so much going on in the background.
Yeah. And has there ever been a time in your life when lots has not been happening?
No.
Right? So it's never going to be like, life is going to come and say, okay, Meri, I'm taking a pause so you can finally get your book written.
Yeah. No, that's not going to happen, is it?
Yeah.
I kept saying to my family and friends, I'm going to lock myself away for a month and just do it. But every time I'd try to do that, something else would always creep in. So it wasn't going to happen. Yeah.
Cool.
So I think distractions is probably the biggest hurdle I've had.
Yeah. And, of course, distractions will happen. And it's just about, I think what I love about you is you bring in that discipline, right? And the messenger chats that we have, the check-ins, the plans that we create, let's talk Monday morning or Monday evening. And you're like, okay, this weekend.
I find that really useful.
Yeah.
Keeps me accountable.
Absolutely.
And time drifts away from you if you're not accountable.
Absolutely.
And I can go, oh gosh, that was 3 weeks ago. What? So I need to have that accountability, because it keeps me aware of time marching on. Otherwise, I will just procrastinate and, fluff about.
Forever. Right.
Yeah.
So, Mary, just so others can relate and resonate with, can you share with us, like, some of your very typical self-talk, like how does your self-doubt sound like? What do you tell yourself when you're not at your best? Or
Oh gosh, well, I think it manifests in because I have a chronic illness as well. What happens is that when I start to feel like I'm under pressure or I can't cope, my first thing is, oh, I'm getting sick, or I'm too tired, or I can do it tomorrow, and I put things off and put things off, because what I'm actually saying to myself is, you can't do this, you can't do it, it's too much, it's too big, you can't handle this, and who's going to want to know anyway? That's the kind of stuff that's in the background underneath all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you've considered scrapping the whole project multiple times in the journey of writing this book?
I have. Well, have I considered scrapping? I don't know if I've considered scrapping it, but I have been like, oh, do I have to do this now? Maybe I picked the wrong time. Maybe I should do it another time when I've got myself more together.
Yeah, maybe next summer.
Yes, just put things off, and
after the house is ready.
After I've built the house,
yeah.
Not like I haven't got much happening. I've got plenty to occupy my time. Outside the book, but I just feel like no, the time is now, and I think over Christmas time I gave up a little bit but not on the book, but just on the timing of it. I think at this time I felt like the pressure was on.
Yeah.
And emotionally I wasn't in a good place. So I was, the wheels came off there, but that happens to me every Christmas anyway.
Yeah.
So, that's nothing new. So there are times when I just go, oh, I don't think I have the emotional energy to do this, because it is very personal for me, this book. This is very, and writing that first part about my story was actually, it was really good for me to do it, but it was also really emotionally draining to do it, because I was reliving and revisiting a lot of past hurts.
And that's a beautiful point you bring, because now, of course, we have to go through that emotional discomfort. I will not promise that it's going to be a comfortable journey, because it's not.
No.
How do you feel now on the other side of it? Like, when you read your own story, do you feel slightly less attached, and do you feel like, oh wow, I did it? Like, has it helped you?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I feel less attached, but you see, as an art therapist, one of the modalities we use is creative writing. So when I wrote my story, which is a bit like a hero's journey many times over, I kind of relate to it from a therapeutic point of view, and I can look at it and go, yeah, this has been a really healthy thing for me to look at the big picture. I've only ever told snippets of my story here and there in conversation, and I haven't cornered someone in a room and just tell them all about my life. That would be horrible. So I just, people know bits and pieces, but I haven't ever sat down and actually written it from childhood through to adulthood, through to where I am now. I haven't actually written that whole entire timeline until now. And it was actually really, it put a lot of things in perspective for me, actually. I was able to resolve a lot of the stuff that was going on in the background, which I wasn't even aware of. By writing the book, I could see perspectives that I hadn't seen before about it. So I think it was a really cathartic and healthy thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I have never heard a person who has written something and not found unexpected catharsis, through.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And I really believe in the value of that. So, it's what I do for a living now, is I help people bring the unknown into the known and pull things out from deep within them to look at them in a new light. So it's very rewarding work, and it was very interesting to watch it on myself unfolding.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, absolutely. So,
I had the two hats.
Is there any advice, like, how are you feeling now about your story? Okay, here's what I want to ask. Is there any truth in any of your doubts?
No. I think no.
Easy answer.
No, there's not. It's bizarre, isn't it, how we do this to ourselves? Yeah, no, I've got to a point now, far enough along in the book, that I can see the end.
Yep.
And I think, yeah, okay, there's a plan here. It's actually coming together. And I love it when a plan comes together. And I'm starting to feel like, oh, wow, this has been such a journey for me. Just this writing has been an amazing journey.
Yeah.
And I'm reaching a point of self-satisfaction now where I can sort of say, I've actually done that. That's great. Because I didn't think it was possible a year ago.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think thank you. And I can't tell you how much it has been a pleasure working on this book, because I've already kind of touched upon it, how much I have learned specifically about your subject and the lesson about lessons. Like, that's gold.
Well, I hope it hits the mark with a lot of people.
It will. It's no brainer. So
I have a message.
What's that?
I certainly have a message to share.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. Cool. So would you like to share with us, Meri, all the wins, the big ones, the small ones, anything that you've experienced as a result of writing your book in the process?
It's interesting, Shilpa, I say self-satisfied, but actually I feel like validated in a way.
Wow.
So I feel like by writing the book, it's given some substance to all of the stuff that I've had running around in my head.
Yeah.
And meaning to it.
Yep.
So it's enabled me to package it in a way that I think is going to get the message out much more effectively than I was trying to do it beforehand. So I think for me, that's a huge win. And the small wins would be overcoming those little hurdles that I had and pressing on, persevering in spite of the fact of my own self-doubts. And, every time I complete a chapter and I read back the word count and I go, I only thought I had a paragraph to write, but look, I've written a whole chapter.
Yeah. And, like what your book is coming up close to 55 to 60,000 words. Like, that's really massive. Yeah.
Yeah. I know, it's just, I never thought that I would be able to do that. So it's all been wins along the way. I mean, I've had my trials and tribulations along the way, but it's always been followed.
Yeah, and wins don't come without that. Like, that's what the hero's journey is all about, right? Like, yeah. So, what's coming to my mind is, tell me.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I can't wait for the book to be out and the follow-up hero's journey that I can take people on as well. Yeah. So
you've got a last few weeks of being pregnant, so hold it in there before we deliver it, right? So, but yes, I think your book has been like a beautiful consolidation of all the bits and pieces that you were trying to convey in your marketing, at networking events. Sometimes clear, sometimes not so clear of what you stand for or what's the message or, what it is really all about.
Definitely.
And, arriving on these two key themes, which is, that your life is all about the hero's journey and your book is designed around the hero's journey. And, the discussion that we recently had about rebelling and, you talk about it. You cannot stick to a structure, but...
It was so when you called me a rebel, because I thought, I don't see myself as a rebel,
Meri,
but when I look at it...
Look at your hair color, like... it's there.
Purple.
Yeah,
Badly.
who colors their hair purple, right?
Had it done yesterday now. I know. I've already, and you know, the funny thing is that my son, I came across some photos the other day. I'm just getting a little bit off track, sorry.
That's okay.
But talking about my son who passed away was a bit of a character too. And I remember in his teenage years, I came across this photograph of him and had bright red hair, like really bright red hair, glowing bright. And then the next photo I came across, it was green. And then I came across another photograph and it was white. And it was like, oh my gosh, I'm channeling my son.
You know, I think that would be the most beautiful way to pay respect to his journey, you know.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah. The apple didn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah. Cool. So, coming back to enoughness and your book, can you tell us how has, you know, writing this book helped you strengthen or tap into more of your enoughness?
I think it comes down to, I feel like I've got something with some weight behind it now to say, yeah, I have actually been through some stuff and I really do understand things. You know, when I write about all of the troubles I've had, but also about the mental health issues that have arisen and the coping mechanisms and now my understanding from a professional's point of view of how that played out, I realise I've got a really broad understanding. So I think it's kind of helped me like settle in and say, yeah, I actually do have something really worthwhile to offer here.
Yeah.
It's not just words. I actually do have
substance.
Knowledge. I have a real knowledge base here that I've been underselling for a really long time.
Yeah,
So,
love it.
Yeah.
You know, because it's bringing me back to, you know, the very thing that I think enoughness stands for, which is own your worth and share your story.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that I can confidently now, I stopped talking about my story for a really long time because I felt like people didn't want to hear, you know.
Yeah.
Wanted to be the downer of the party.
Yeah.
But now I'm at a position where I think I can actually objectively talk about it now.
Yeah.
And talk about it in a way that's helpful and constructive for people. And for me, that's been a real gift. And it's brought me up another level. It's raised me up a level, which is...
Yeah, it's such a beautiful gift to receive, right? Through writing, because it's extremely valuable when you say that I've come to a point where I can talk about my story objectively, rather than, you know, in the past, you didn't want to be the downer of the party because you had, you know, emotional attachments. And the moment you start talking about your story, you didn't know where to stop and, you know, how to leave those people in a better place than you found them.
Yes, exactly.
Or, you know, don't want to leave them with the trauma, right? And that's right. What I say all the time. You know, you've got to make sure you've healed yourself before you put your story out there. And
100%.
The catch-22 is the healing will not happen before you start the writing.
No, it's interesting,
right?
Isn't it?
So,
you know, because I'd done so much work on myself, Shilpa. You know, because I always said I can't be a therapist until I've healed me. I can't pour from an empty cup. So I need to be healed myself so that I can stand strong and be resilient and be a support to the people.
But that's a recipe for self-indulgence and like depression, right? If you just keep obsessing about, I will serve the society, I will serve the world when I become perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
so
far from the purpose of a therapist.
Yeah, so I mean, I've done a lot of work on myself, but it wasn't until I started working on the book that I thought, actually, there's still a bit there that needs to be dealt with, and you know, pulling up to the surface. So this is probably really good to get it out and see the progression for myself, how I've progressed through life. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, cool. So a little bit about connecting the dots between your book and your business. So as your art therapy consulting practice. So what
Yes.
edge do you think that the book, writing the book is not yet out, but just writing, being in the process, has added to your business? And what do you see it adding in the future when it's out?
I think that what it's going to do in the first instance is that it's going to add some credibility to who I am as a therapist. That when people see me as a published author, they're going to see that, okay, she has got a story to tell. She's not someone who's just gone to learn art therapy for the sake of it.
She's done the work.
She's done the work, yeah. She's lived the life. She's done the work. She understands. So I think that it's going to add credibility from the point of view of people who are looking for art therapy, and also for me to present myself more. So it's actually going to give me, and this is what I hope, is a platform later on to talk about the broader picture with art therapy and become more of an advocate for it and keynote speaker or whatever. I will have now something that tangible that I can speak about, and then I can tie everything in together and show people that, yes, you can go through all sorts of major things in your life, but there is hope. You can come out the other end. This was a member of society.
Especially, in situations like, in businesses like yours, which is very sensitive, art therapy, art psychotherapy. People who come to you have gone through some extreme traumas, like really indecent traumas. And the biggest challenge for these people and your ideal clients is not being able to trust the person on the other end, or not being able to will she get me? Does she have any idea of what I've gone through? And your book is doing the heavy lifting for you. Like it's telling them your story, which then tells them, okay, she has been in the trenches. Like, she has had a chaotic life. She has had a messy life. But here she is, adding hope to...
Yes. That's the ideal outcome, is if people can see me as a trusted person to come to, who's not going to ask too many questions and who just knows that there are some things that's too hard to talk about.
Yeah, and I'm thinking it saves you so much time and effort trying to sell and trying to convince people by telling your story, and like, no, you won't believe it. I've gone through this. You don't have to do that anymore, right? Because the book is doing that.
That's right. And it's broadening my audience as well. But the book is probably going to reach all sorts of people that I wouldn't reach in my normal networking circles.
Yeah, it's going to reach fellow art therapists as well, for sure.
Yeah, so I think it's going to really broaden my scope in terms of who knows about NSE, art therapy, NSE creative counselling.
Yeah.
It will broaden my audience, and that will be good, because if I can stimulate conversation, book, then it's a win for people, and it's a win for art therapy.
Absolutely. And the more people you're able to reach, the more the more you can expand your reach, the more people are getting helped.
If I can kickstart some dialogue, that will be fantastic.
Absolutely. Right. So in closing, Meri, thank you so much. Like, I've just loved this conversation, and we can go on for hours together. But from your personal journey, so from your personal journey, what would you say, or what would be your advice to someone who's maybe sitting on the fence, not able to trust their story, doesn't know where to begin?
My advice is find yourself someone awesome like Shilpa.
Thank you for that.
And really, seriously, just start. And I'll say what I say in art therapy, and that is trust the process. There is a process, trust it, and your story will come out. It's just overcome that initial fear and just start. You may surprise yourself.
Absolutely. I love it, what you just brought, because yes, the whole world talks about trust yourself, trust yourself, trust yourself. But when you can't trust yourself, trust a system that works, and just
Yeah,
work the system, right?
100%. And then in time, you can trust yourself because you
Yeah.
can see that
It's just like the connection between creativity and structure, right? So we think structure is a very boring thing and very rigid, and very dry, but even creativity can get overwhelming sometimes, and you might stop expressing completely.
Yeah.
You don't know where to start, so use a structure. Start expressing.
When you talk about it in terms of creativity,
Yep.
we all have this fear of not being creative. I hear it all the time with people saying, I'm not creative, I can't do it.
Yeah.
But we are all born creators.
I know we are creation. We are,
and,
nothing could be far from the truth, right?
Not drawing pictures in the sand, or we're not afraid of our creativity. We are only afraid of our creativity as we become adults, which is really, really interesting because it's been kind of drummed out of us. And so we have a fear of doing something that's not creative. Writing is creative, so it's not formulaic. We're very, very used to having lines to colour within. And when you're just doing your own story, you don't have those lines. So, but then you realise that there actually is a formula. There is a way to do this, and it works. So, yeah, my advice to anybody is to just trust that process, because it will get you there. And once you start making your own stamp on it, you'll realise that it will just flow. It'll come out.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you guys. With you, Meri, and very well said. So thank you very, very much. I'm sure myself and anyone who's listening to this cannot wait for your book. We're going to do a recap when your book is launched, and we're going to kind of join the book together. Before we leave, do you want to, what's that?
I'm just a little bit excited about
just
that.
A little bit, not lots. Right. So before we wrap up, do you want to share with the listeners where they can find you and where they can connect with you if they need to?
Yeah, okay. So I have a website. My studio is in Brighton, South Australia, or it's actually in Seacliff on Brighton Road.
Yeah.
It's called Inner Sea Creative Counselling. And I have a website and a Facebook page. You can hop on there and look me up.
Yeah, I'm just going to spell it easily to make it really clear for everyone. It's Inner Sea. So inner as in INNER, sea as in SEE. So Inner Sea Creative Counselling, right?
Yeah, that's right. So my catchphrase is navigating the sea within. So, I run workshops and I do individual counselling, and people are welcome to look me up on the website, or perhaps Sugar would be kind enough to add a link somewhere.
I will add a link. Yeah, just send me the links you want me to add and I'll add in there.
Yeah. And people can read about me and what I offer there on the website. So.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Thank you so much, Meri. And thank you so much for watching, you guys. Post in the comments below wherever you are. Reach out to me or to Meri and let us know how much you love her story.
Right. To hear some feedback.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Take care. Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.